only Mr. Nick Kuzma! So, 2 years ago, or a couple years ago, I was sitting in Austin, invited out to a nice restaurant. I wish I remembered the name. I don't remember the name, but we were sitting in there having one of the best steaks of my life, because we're in Austin. I'm having such a great meal. It's fantastic. The dinner comes to an end. I give them my credit card. We're about to wrap things up. They go back, and another server comes out and says, "Mr. Kuzmich?" Yes. I have no idea what's going on. Did the credit card fail? What happened? Did I say something wrong? Did I spill? Like, what's going on? In fact, let's start with a little bit of a quiz, don't you think? What do you think happened? Right? Number one, my credit card was declined. Number two, free meal. Compliments of the chef. Thirdly, I have something I need to tell you. So who am I? First, my name is Nicholas Kuzmich. That's what you need to know about me. This is my family. Well, that was 2 Halloweens ago. This most recent Halloween, this is what we transformed into. This is why I live. This is the very thing that makes me breathe and move on. But this is my family, and frankly, what I do is I help people get exceptional results using Facebook advertising, the highest ROIs in the industry. And people like my good friend Todd Herman might say something like, from the guy that spent $500,000 of my own money and made me $5 million, might be worth something to talk about. Now actually, even before we begin, I want to have one more quiz while we're here together. And I want you to answer so I can get a sense of the room in here. Number one, or which of the following best describes you? Number one, I avoid Facebook ads like the plague. A handful of them. Great! Hopefully not for too much longer. Number two, I think Facebook has great potential, but so far all I have done is participated in Facebook philanthropy. Donations all day long to the Zuckerberg Fund. Yes, that sounds like the vast majority of you. I'm in that boat too. We're here to put a stop to that. I was there one time. Or number three, I'm crushing it with Facebook ads. Okay, a couple. Awesome. So I get a sense of the room. Now, you might be thinking, first and foremost, why Facebook? I mean, in short, if Facebook were a country, it'd be the largest country in population density in the entire world. It's this kind of combination of big and small. Everybody say big and small. The big is the fact that you have Super Bowl-like reach. You can reach hundreds of millions of people anytime you want with the click of a button at pennies on the dollar. But the small side is, if you wanted to, you could show your ad to a 33-year-old female who reads romance novels, shops at Whole Foods, spent $1,000 on her Amex card last week, and lives in the zip code 90210. So you got the bigness of Facebook, and you got the smallness of Facebook, and that's kind of what I want to start here with, is the ability of huge opportunity. What's the word? In fact, let me just start with this. My good friend Brad Martineau from 6th Division, I know they're here, did this, and I wanted to kind of do the same. Because how many people in here have kids? Awesome. And how many people got on an airplane to get here? So when you go home and you see your kids, what's one of the first things they say to you? What'd you get me, right? Every time I travel somewhere, my kids are like, "Oh, Daddy, so good to see you." They're like, "What'd you get me, Dad?" Right? So just because I want to be a great kind of guy here, I've kind of gone ahead and done some of that for you. So first we've got this. Who's got a boy? Anybody got a young boy? I got this really cool Ninjago movie Lego set. Saw Ninjago. My kids are 3 and 2. I don't know. All I know is Paw Patrol, right? I don't know this Ninjago business just yet. I'm there. But who would like this? Awesome. All right, so we got what? Ninjago. Bloody hell. Anybody got a daughter here? Oh, yeah, awesome. I got this Ninjago. No, I got this glitter girls doll for the daughter. Anyone want this one? Perfect, all right. Not getting it yet. That's cool. And then this is for, okay, there you go, brother. Yeah. There you go. Some people are getting this. Some people are missing it. Some people are understanding here. Because friends, an opportunity is only as good as your ability to do what? Seize it. Opportunities come by you all the time, and most people sit back and just say, well, there must be a catch. Or I must need to do something. No, opportunities are all before us, and there's a great opportunity before you today. And what I want to show you is something that I call the campaign maximizer method. Let me set the stage and then get right into the content. So a client came to me and said, Nick, we're running a launch. Now, the first time they did this launch last year, their funnel looked a little bit something like this. They drove Facebook traffic to a quiz or an opt-in page. They generated a whole ton of leads, and then they used email to distribute that content to their people and to generate sales. Sound familiar, right? Generate leads, use your email, get it out there to the people, hopefully people buy. Now this wasn't so bad. They did about 600K in sales. How many know that that's a good day, yes? And then they came to me and they said, Nick, can we do better this year? I said, what are you changing? Nothing. Except we want you to deploy your campaign maximizer strategy to the process. I said, no problem, let's input this. We did the exact same thing, except we deployed what I'm about to show you today, and instead of 600K in sales, we did 2.3 million in sales from a $72,000 spend. How many people want to spend 72 grand and make 2.3 million? Now, disclaimer, most of y'all won't do that, but that's okay. Even if we get a little bit of that, by understanding what we're talking about today, we're going to make this work. So how does this work? We've got to understand 3 phases. How many phases? Phase number 1, capture. Everybody say capture. Phase number 2, consumption. Say consumption. Phase number 3, conversion. Say the word. Conversion. If we understand these 3 simple phases, which I'm going to break down very quickly for you, you're going to have the best Facebook ad situation that you possibly can have. So let's start right with phase number 1, prospecting or capture, right? One of the best uses of Facebook ads, in my opinion, is having the ability to generate leads. To generate what? Leads is the name of the game. Now why? Because here's the power principle. Leads are an appreciating asset over time. Here's what I mean by that. How many people have been in Ryan's world more than 1 year? More than 2 years? More than 3 years? Okay, now those who've been in for, let's say, 3 years, how many people love, respect, appreciate Ryan more today than you did the first day you joined his list? Do you see what I mean? So someone comes into your list today, they love and appreciate you over here. But the longer that lead is with you, and the better you take care of them over time, the more likely they're going to transact with you. So if we look at a little board here. Oh yeah, okay, we got cameras everywhere. This is great. I was like, I got to point it here, then I got to point. No, we don't. All right, so here's what's going to happen. They're either going to buy, yes, or no, and it's either going to be now or not now, as Dean Jackson says. There's only 2 times when people transact with us, now and not now, right? Now, if they don't buy from us, no problem, we have no concerns and there's nothing we can do about it. But the people who do buy from us, here's what consumer studies have shown. Now get this, 50% of the people who inquire about something end up buying that something within 2 years. So if a couple goes to the furniture store, sees a couch, 50% of the couples who see the couch will end up buying a couch within a 2-year time period. That doesn't mean they'll buy it from the person they first saw it with, just means they'll buy a couch. Now, of the 50% who say yes, watch this. 15% buy between day 0 and 91. 15% buy between the day 0 and 91, which means that from day 92 to 2 years, 85% of the people transact. What does this tell me? The majority of your buyers are right here. And I see so many people when they run Facebook ads, they're just running an ad to go make a sale. That's not bad, but here's the goal of this thing here. We want to generate as many qualified top-of-funnel leads into our system. And how do we do that? We do that with great top-of-funnel offers. Now, I've worked in this space for a long, long time. We've run millions of leads, generated hundreds of millions of dollars, and seen many things happen. And one of the greatest top-of-funnel lead generators that I have ever seen has been what? You guess. Quizzes. So if you have a good quiz in place, and Ryan's going to talk all about that in just a second, then you have the mechanism to generate a great lead. Right? Now, once we've generated this lead, here's where Facebook's really good, and there's a lot of things we can talk about, but where Facebook really stands out is the targeting. What's the word? Now look at all the things you can target. Oh, that's just page 1. And that's just page 2. You can target people who like design, people who listen to blues music, people, I can't even read some of this, who read comic books, so on and so forth. Facebook's capability to target is outrageous. You have such an amazing capacity to do this. Now, how many people by seeing that feel extremely overwhelmed? So let me break it down and make it real simple for you. I call this the targeting trifecta. When you're looking at Facebook and you have all these options of things that you target, I want you to ask 3 F questions. F question number 1 is, who does my ideal prospect follow? Everybody say follow. Who does my ideal prospect follow? Right? Now, everybody heard of Pareto's principle before, the 80-20 rule? What does the 80-20 rule state in short? 80% of the results comes from 20% of your customers or your efforts. Now, this is true. Let me come back to this in just a second. This is true also when you're thinking about your market, right? You got the 80% and the 20%. Now, if I were to say, hey, when you're doing your targeting, you should focus on the 20% who are most likely going to buy for you, that would have been great advice 10 years ago. What's the problem now? Facebook, Instagram, social channels are super busy. And if all you're doing is targeting the 20%, it's not going to work. So here's what I want to introduce to you today. It hasn't quite caught on like the Pareto principle. Frankly, I'm calling it the Kuzmich principle. But with your help, we can trend this thing and make this work, and maybe when I die, it'll be a thing. I call it the 96-4 rule. So when you look at the 20% of your ideal prospect who could be your target, look at the 20% of the 20%. Who's most likely going to transact with you? We call this your 4%. And now, whenever you're writing copy or running ads or doing anything, this is who you focus on. Everybody know the beer company Stella Artois? Yes. One of their taglines is this: reassuringly expensive. Their sub-tagline is, we cut no cost in the creation of our beer, and then we pass those costs on to you, our customer. They know exactly who their 4% is, and they don't care if you don't fit in it, but they know the ones who do like it join right in. So the idea is get very clear on your target group, right? Now, I have accelerator group clients of mine coming to me all the time and say, Nick, I'm just all things to all people. And I say, no, you gotta get specific on your 4%. And the moment they did that, things changed, right? This guy's name is Matt, he runs an agency. And I said, who are your best clients? He says, people in the fitness industry. I said, well, why don't we just focus on them? All of a sudden, business blew up. This guy focuses only on specific dentists who do a specific procedure. This guy, financial advisors, is where his game is at. And you already met one of my accelerator clients, Mr. Stephen Caffrey, who's outside, spoke on day 1. He focuses on how to fix leaks and funnels. But the moment you focus specifically on a very specific target, that's where you're going to get the results. Does that make sense? So then if we go back to this targeting thing here, I want you to look at the targeting trifecta. The first question you're going to ask is, who does my ideal prospect follow? Okay, because Facebook's made up of tribes of tribal leaders. We call them influencers or gurus. If you were in the personal development space, who's the guru in the personal development space? Tony Robbins. He's done all the work, generating a huge fan base. Now you can just target his audience if you'd like. So much easier than starting from scratch. So first question, who do they follow? Next question is, where do they frequent? Whether digitally, virtually, or physically, where do they go? If you know that they frequent Ask Live every year, what does that tell you about them? If you know someone goes to Traffic and Conversion Summit, what does that tell you about them? If you know someone reads the Home and Garden magazine on a weekly basis, what does that tell you about them? That they like home and gardening. So if you, by asking simply what do they frequent, gives you great insight into people you can target. And lastly, fund where they spent money. Wherever they spent money in the past is likely to lead to where they spend money in the future. So in my case, if I teach people Facebook ads, and I might be asking where do they spend money, well, maybe they bought Bucket.io. Maybe they use ClickFunnels. Maybe they use Infusionsoft. Maybe they use these platforms, but I know if they buy those, they're most likely going to need Facebook ads. So I want you to be thinking about this for yourself. Point number one here is generate leads. Everybody say generate leads. But we don't want to stop there. And that's where most people stop their ads. We just generate leads and we're like, yay! But let's move on to number two, phase two, consumption. Right? Here's where most people, again, rely on email to push people through. The goal of this phase is getting your lead to consume content so we turn them from cold to warm. And if you rely strictly on a couple of things, the reality is if you just do this, watch, number one, if you only sell to cold audiences, you're probably leaving 85% on the table. Does that make sense? I mean, how many people buy something the first time they see it? No, you need a couple of touch points. Now, the second reality is, if you rely on email only to deliver your content to people, you're obviously leaving a ton on the table. How many people have an email list here? And when you send an email, how many people have 100% of the people open and read it? Right? So if you rely only on one channel to get, you work so hard to generate a lead, and now only 15% of the people see your content? Waste! So let's figure out how we can use Facebook ads to help this. Again, so the takeaway here is use retargeting ads that push people through the funnel. So if you have a webinar, like Ryan said, once someone becomes a lead, what do? Have a Facebook ad that pushes them to the webinar. If you have an application process, what do? Have a retargeting ad that pushes those leads to the application process. So whatever you use to sell the thing, have people go through that process by using Facebook ads to push them through. Does that make sense? Now, what else can you do? Well, here's one thing that I do. Anybody who becomes a lead gets stuff from me on my Facebook Lives. So I retarget all my leads and I push them to my weekly Facebook Lives so they can see more content, I can build more credibility. Right? Where else can I send them? I also send people to my Forbes article because that builds authority. So now they're like, oh, this cat was in Forbes. He must be worthy to listen to. They trust me, they know me, they like me, they transact with me. Or, how many people have ever been on a podcast before? When I'm on a podcast, I'm like, I don't really want to send traffic there because it's not my traffic unless, right, it makes me look good and I can drop a little, this is a side hack, a little call to action on the bottom that says, hey, if you want a cool thing from me, come get it. So now I'm not just relying on email, I'm relying on ads to push people through. Now write this down. This is what we call mirror campaigns or surround sound campaigns. And here's a standard operating procedure that you have to know today. Every single time, how often? You send out a core correspondence via email. You also send out a Facebook ad to that specific exact same custom audience so they get the message at least 2 times. Does that make sense? So now you're not just relying on email. What happens is they see the content of the email in their inbox, maybe, but they also see it on Facebook. And now they're most likely going to open things up. So this is what you need to do. Every time you plan to send out an email, make sure a Facebook ad retargeting goes out to the same audience. We did this with one of our clients. Tony had something to say to his group. It was very, very important. It was pre-election a couple years back. And so they had an email go out, but they wanted to make sure the audience saw the email, so we duplicated it in the form of an ad and got it out there. Now, don't underestimate the power of this. One of my clients, Henry Ma, said, hey, you know that mirror campaign thing that we did? We've never been able to make Facebook ads work, but we did this retargeting mirror campaign, and all of a sudden we spent $1,591. Big money, yes! And we made $978,000 in return. By doing nothing more than a mirror campaign. So don't take this lightly. your content is good, but people are not seeing it, so we need to get people to see it. So a couple power principles here. Number one, have multiple pieces of content that you can send out to people. Don't rely on just one webinar. Don't rely on just one Facebook Live. Don't rely on just one article you wrote. The more you have, the better. The more you can bounce people around in your content, you're warming them up to know, like, and trust you, which will then lead to the sale. Now, how many people are in the information business? Okay, so for information business, here's my hack. If you can have content that is objection overcoming case studies, this stuff crushes. So rather than me saying, hey, Facebook ads are really great for you, I will tell you a story about Henry Ma, who, by the way, sells embroidery machines. It's the first time someone's ever come to me and says, Nick, I want to do Facebook ads. I'm like, great, but what do you sell? Embroidery machines. Do you think Facebook ads can work? For the first time, I might have said no. I was like, embroidery machine, I don't know. But I tell the story of how he made it work. That's an objection overcoming narrative. Because people might be thinking, will Facebook ads work for me? Well, if they work for Henry, they might work for you too. How many people have a physical product business? Okay, so people do physical products. Here's the hack. We found user-generated demonstrative video content. This is one of our clients who has an oil kind of thing that they do on their face. And we've got thousands of videos of girls putting this oil on their face that they take and they send back to the client, and we just run ads to them. By the hundreds of thousands of people who see user-generated content end up making a transaction. So the point here is make sure your Facebook pixel, and I know this might be over some of your heads, and we'll explain how we can do this later, but make sure your pixel is on every page, and then through inclusion and exclusion audiences, you can essentially have every person who came into your quiz funnel now bounce around to pieces of content before they buy. Does that make sense? Everybody say consumption. So now lastly then, point number 3 is conversion. The goal here is one thing only, and that's to drive the sale. How do we do that? Everybody who has consumed any of your content, they've been on a webinar, they read the article, they watched a podcast or listened to any content that they consume middle of funnel, those people are going to get ads that drive them to your actual sale offer. And there are a couple of key hacks that I'm going to share with you right now to wrap things up that's going to help make this possible. One way you can do this, because most people are just like, hey, my thing's for sale, come buy it, right? Not so fun. But one of the keys you can do is what I call an announcement. An announcement simply says, hey, the doors are open now, you can come by. It's simply inviting them to say, hey, I've got this thing, the doors are now open, you've consumed some of my content, if you would like it, come and get it. Pretty straightforward, yes? Now, the other type of ad you can do is what we call join others. Nobody likes to be the first, but if you can prove that there were other people who bought your stuff before they did, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it. So in this case, we say, hey, join all these other people who are already members, who are already buying and using this thing. Now that person feels a lot safer. In fact, if you have video testimonials, you can do what I do. I run carousel ads just to video testimonials, and here's my wording. Hey, don't just take my word for it. Hear what some of my clients have to say about their experience. You run ads like that, all of a sudden sales go up, right? Lastly, you can have what we call last chance offers, where if you have a process where it essentially closes a cart, where people have a time limit. By the way, every time you make an offer, this is my personal belief, every time you make an offer, there should always be some sort of a time limit on it. Because how many people have wanted to buy something from Amazon, and you open up a new tab, and you're like, I'm going to buy that later. And when has later come? Never. It's because people feel like they have all the time in the world to make a decision that they forget to make it. So if you give them a little bit of a time constraint and say, hey, I'd love to give this to you, but you only have until this time to buy it, then don't be too aggressive with it, like buy now in 1 minute or die. How many people have seen that before? It leaves a terrible feeling in your gut. I'm not saying that, but you give people a little bit of a time limit to do that. Now, how do we do that? We use a tool called Deadline Funnel to do that. This is a free 30-day trial. Take a picture if you want to use it. It's a great tool. Now, a couple more things as we begin to bring this to a close that help drive the sale. Okay? First thing is, what if you had ads that took away bonuses or ad bonuses? So maybe they're going to buy your widget, and all of a sudden they see an ad because they're sitting on the fence, right? They've seen the sales page, they're sitting on the fence, and what if all of a sudden you say, hey, if you get by this time, we're also also going to throw in all these bonuses. That helps push people over the fence. Or the alternative. Hey, if you don't buy this time, all of these bonuses are going to go away. You can bonus stack, or you can bonus remove, right? How many people in here have your product that's, let's say, $2,000 or more? A higher ticket thing? What you could do if you wanted, right, is have ads that say, hey, payment plans available. So what if your ad was like, hey, come buy my thing, it's $2,000. This is what they know to be true, and that's all it is, and you leave it at that. But then all of a sudden they see an ad that says, hey, are you still interested? Look, we get it. Maybe it's a stretch to pay it all up front. So what we've done, we've made it really easy for you. We've broken it down into 6 equal payments. Now you can come buy it. How many people know that this would save a sale? Right? Payment plans. Or what about silver options? So if we're pushing people to a main option, hey, it's $2,000, it's $2,000, or my thing is $50, it's $50, whatever the price is, and they've seen the sales page and they have not yet bought. What if you retarget them with an ad that says, hey, maybe gold, too many things for you. What we have is a silver option. Instead of $50, it's $25. You can get this option as well. How many people know that that would save a sale? So the point here is, you don't just say, hey, come buy my stuff, but you use Facebook ads to drive the sale with as many sale drivers as you know to be possible. Once you start pushing people to that, your conversions go up big time, and now you're not just relying on Facebook ads to like, hey, come check out my quiz and fill it out. Now you're using to actually take people on a journey, to get to know you, to get to like you, to get to trust you, and then you offer the ability to transact with you. Now, one key thing in here that I'll just throw in that we found the other way, rather than pushing people back to the sales page. So what if they saw a sales page and you're like, hey, come back to the sales page that you originally said no to? Most people do that. Instead, you know what I use my retargeting ads for? Pushing them forward to the cart page. They've already seen the sales page, and they're interested, they just haven't bought. Why not take the step for them and push them one step forward to the cart page? This thing has gotten us 30% conversions just by pushing someone to the next step. Now, of course, your cart page has to have some social proof on it and all this kind of stuff, but it definitely helps. Does that make sense? This is the way that you're going to make Facebook ads work for you. This is the way that you're no longer going to have to participate in Facebook philanthropy. This is the way where you spend $1 and you make $2 back, $3 back, $10 back, $5, whatever it be, by understanding that you don't rely on Facebook ads for just phase 1, which is capture. Everybody say capture. You use it also for consumption, say consumption. And you use it also for conversion. When you can do that, that's when it works. So here's the reality, folks. I want to bring this all home. These stats are good and these numbers are good, but I want to bring it all home just for 1 second. I want you to think about your income goals for a second. Right? Now, not just like, oh, I wish this, I mean your stretch goals. Is it an extra 25 grand a month? Is it 50? Is it 100 grand a month? Is it another $1 million a month? It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to tell anybody, but I want you to think about your stretch goal for a second. What is that dream goal like? And then ask yourself, am I there? Now, if the answer is no, let me tell you a secret. The only reason that you're not there is because you're not yet implementing a system that drives traffic to a proven conversion system. That's all it is. That's the beauty of it. Once you start implementing a system that works, then you start to see results. See, I think Facebook is like a Ferrari. In fact, I think Facebook's like a Formula One car. Thing is bloody fast. If you want to scale your business fast, and I mean really make it work, this will get you, Facebook ads will get you there 0 to 500 miles an hour. All the other things, Google and blogging and content writing and all this kind of stuff, it's all good, it'll eventually get there. It's just, it's a tricycle. It'll get there slow. How many people love slow? Right? Now, the reality, however, what's the problem with Formula One cars? If you don't know how to drive it, what happens? You could die. Same thing is true with Facebook ads, right? If you don't know how to set up the ad properly, if you don't know how to target properly, if you don't know how to do the whole system properly, what happens? Facebook ain't going to tell you. They're just going to keep charging your credit card. And then after 3 months, you're going to be all out of money. And then you're going to say, Facebook ads don't work. No, Facebook ads work. You just need to know how to drive the car. When you drive the car, that's how it gets you there even faster. So the only thing stopping you from hitting your numbers right now, I'll be honest with you, is running Facebook ads to something like a quiz funnel, to an ask method funnel, just pumping that machine day in and day out to make this work. That's the only thing stopping you from hitting your goals. And frankly, the reason why we're not making the money we want is because we're paying the tuition, but we're paying the tuition to the university of not knowing and not doing. Stop giving your money to the not knowing, not doing university and start implementing. So let's bring this whole thing to a close. I'm sitting at that restaurant, had the best steak of my life, because it's Austin. It's the end of dinner, I bust out my credit card, I give it to the guy. He takes it back, and then another person comes up to me, another server, and says, "Mr. Kuzmich?" "Yes." "You know what was going on?" "One of three things." "What do you think happened?" Number one, the credit card was declined. Number two, free meal, compliments of the chef. Or number three, I have something I need to tell you. C is right. And he goes, "Mr. Kuzmich, I want you to know that my name is Corey. I'm 22 years old, and I started a copywriting business 2 years ago. And it was because of your content that I was able to get my first 4 clients, and I'm only 2 clients away from actually walking away from being a server at this restaurant and pursuing my dream as a copywriter." Friends, if you can figure out this thing properly, if you can build the system, drive the leads, ask the questions, run them through the method, and turn the sales, the question is, what's it for you? Can you come up and be like, yeah, copywriter, I'm the copywriter guy. I'm the person who can say, I did it and I made it happen. You're only a few clicks away from making that happen, but you've got to take the opportunity to commit and to follow through. That's all it takes, commitment and follow through. And you can drive that Formula One car across the finish line for you. Does that make sense? Will you commit to making it happen? All right, that's all I got, guys. All the best. Ryan.
How Facebook ads work and the key pieces at a sort of conceptual level and how we actually bring it down into practice. Now, Nick talked about something. He said that the single most effective strategy on Facebook ads was what? Quiz. Quizzes. Over and over and over again. You heard me say it yesterday. Quizzes responsible for building an email list of over 4.1 million email subscribers.